The grace of God, a concept central to the biblical narrative, stands as a beacon of divine love, a gift freely given, unearned, and undeserved. As we embark on our journey through the pages of the Bible, we find ourselves immersed in the profound and boundless nature of God's grace, a force that transcends human understanding and transforms the very fabric of our lives. The Scriptures weave a tapestry of grace, unfolding stories of individuals whose lives were touched by this divine favor. From the prodigal son returning home to the woman caught in adultery receiving mercy, the Bible is replete with examples of God's grace reaching into the depths of human brokenness. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8-9 beautifully articulates the essence of God's grace. For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not from yourselves. It is the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast. Grace is God's unmerited favor, a gift bestowed upon us not because of our efforts or merit, but as an expression of His boundless love. It is a reminder that salvation is a gift, and our response is simply to receive it with gratitude and faith. Grace in the face of imperfection. Romans chapter 3, verse 23-24 unveils the inclusive nature of God's grace. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, and all are justified freely by His grace through the redemption that came by Christ Jesus. Grace is not reserved for the flawless or the morally impeccable. It is extended to all who acknowledge their need for redemption in our imperfection. God's grace shines brightly, offering a pathway to reconciliation and restoration through the redeeming work of Christ. Abounding grace in times of weakness, 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9-10, reveals a profound truth about God's grace in times of weakness. But He said to me, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, insults, hardships, persecutions, and difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong." God's grace is not only present in our moments of strength, but is magnified in our times of weakness. In acknowledging our dependence on Him, we experience the transformative power of His sufficient grace, extending grace to others. As recipients of God's lavish grace, we are called to extend that same grace to others. Colossians chapter 3, verse 13 instructs us, "Bear with each other and forgive one another. If any of you has a grievance against someone, forgive as the Lord forgave you." Our capacity to forgive and extend grace to others becomes a tangible expression of the grace we have received from God. It reflects His character in our lives, a testimony to the transformative power of grace. A future anchored in grace. A future anchored in grace emerges as a profound truth in the verses of Titus chapter 2, verse 11-12, where the Apostle Paul unveils the forward-looking nature of God's grace. These verses serve as a beacon, illuminating the transformative power of divine favor that not only redeems our past, but guides our present and shapes the trajectory of our future. The proclamation that the grace of God has appeared that offers salvation to all people resonates as a universal call, an inclusive invitation extended to every individual, regardless of background or circumstance. It is a grace that knows no boundaries, reaching out to the broken, the weary, and the lost, offering the promise of salvation as a gift available to all. This grace, far from being a mere theological concept, becomes a compassionate teacher in our lives. It instructs us to turn away from ungodliness and worldly passions, prompting a transformation from within. It is not a rigid set of rules imposed from above, but a gentle guide that empowers us to say no to destructive paths and yes to a life characterized by self-control, uprightness, and godliness. In the landscape of our spiritual journey, God's grace stands as the fulcrum that balances the scales of justice and mercy. It redeems our past, offering forgiveness for sins that once bound us. It guides our present, providing strength and wisdom to navigate the challenges of the current age. And most remarkably, it shapes our future, a future anchored in the assurance of God's unfailing love and grace.